Is the word sans weird or pretentious to use? Very occasionally I'll use the word sans in place of without. It just fits some sentences better in my opinion. I used it with my boss this morning and he was like, "What do you mean? I don't understand." And it felt weird to have to explain the word sans, and he looked at me like I had 3 heads and jokingly said that I can't get fancy like that on him. I never really even gave second thought to using the word. Edit. To address some of the comments, I pronounced it sans French accent. So, like sans the D. The context: we do not have the application for something yet, but we would like to have the rest of the paperwork approved for when we receive the application, so I said, "Sure, I'll submit that for review sans application." Everyone in the audience had at least a bachelor's degree, sans my boss apparently. I mean, it can be used pretentiously, but it is odd to come across an adult who doesn't know that word. Note to self: don't say sans serif, too pretentious. Sans unearth. It's French, so it's automatically going to be perceived as at least a little pretentious. That isn't just me trying to be funny. Either after the Norman conquest of England almost 1,000 years ago, the aristocracy in England were virtually all French speakers, while the peasantry would have spoken Anglo-Saxon. This is why we have different words for animals than we do for the meat that comes from that animal. A farmer would raise pigs, sheep, and cows, but the upper class who were eating the meat and had no contact with the animal would call it pork, mutton, or beef, all of which are derived from French words. Before reading this post, I thought sans was the name of a character. Skull. C'est la vie. Don't let the plebs drag you down, man. As a fellow well-read person with an extensive vocabulary, be careful of making your boss feel stupid. He may have laughed it off at the moment, but I guarantee you made him feel inadequate. Do it again when he calls you up on it. Alas, déjà vu. It's fun to use such words to temps and temps, but maybe not at work. Open mouth smile. Sans context, it is. Why using French word? I don't think it's weird or pretentious. I'll use it sometimes, but it doesn't feel natural to say it for some reason, so I don't use it often. Anything said that's not plain language can come across as pretentious. But the key to writing or speaking is to know your audience and your motivation for saying what you do. If you want to come across as someone with culture and well-traveled, sans it up, my friend. Does he get annoyed at Wendy's for getting fancy with him when he orders the chili con carne? Dude's got issues. Probably felt undermined because of his own insecurity. He didn't know a thing and felt the need to put down someone who did. That's a him problem. You keep doing you. Nothing pretentious about using English language in a pretty normal way. It has a certain je ne sais quoi to it, but I wouldn't say it sounds pretentious. I don't think sans is a pretentious or fancy word to use conversationally. It's not like you're throwing out long, obscure words no one uses anymore just because you found them in a dictionary. If someone said, "I like to order their famous burger sans mustard," I wouldn't give it a second thought. It's not your fault this person wasn't familiar with the word. No, you just made your boss feel stupid. It never used to be while I was growing up. Do English speaker use that too? Wow, I didn't know that. No, it's not pretentious. What does he think a sans serif font refers to? Yes it is. Having an eloquent vernacular may seem unnecessarily labyrinthine, verbose, and bourgeois to the plebs. However, Using sans is not some complex crazy foreign word and is definitely not pretentious. Emo. Depends on context and who you are saying it to. Honestly, the only time I ever heard it was in a game. Batman Arkham Knight. So yeah, probably. Just not everyone will always understand, but that's just language in general, eh? A woman at my job got criticized for using the weird dissonant in a meeting once. Out of the 8 people there, 2 of them doctors, 4 others with college degrees. My high school dropout ass was apparently the only other person there familiar with the word. They still bring it up sometimes. Like 4 years later, they were full-on offended. Like they thought she had specifically chosen the word to talk down to everyone. People are dumb. And weird when they have to acknowledge it. Lol, I learned the word sans in like 4th grade. I use it randomly without even considering anyone else might not know its meaning. Better than Comic Sans? Nah. Anyone who thinks so, is probably just not very sophisticated. I've never heard this word spoken before. I'm 30 and from Northern England. Up here we don't use such fancy big 4-letter words. It depends. Are you pronouncing it sans French or sans phonetic? It's not a fancy word, your boss is simply a fool. If it makes you feel better, I use the word potty when I have to use the bathroom and just now found out people think it's childish. It's just what I've always used. No, not wrong. They're computer fonts that are sans serif, so surprising your boss didn't know. If you say it how it's read High English, then fine. If you say it with a French accent, gonna sound douchey. Not at all. You can tell him that's why Times New Roman is a serif font with little embellishments. And Arial is a sans serif font. You can then go on to explain that use of Comic Sans is, in fact, not funny at all. Ba dum dum tss. Your boss didn't know the meaning of the word. It's not that he was bothered by the pretentiousness of it. I use it as a joke, as in being deliberately pretentious. I'm old enough to remember Wayne's World, where he describes himself as being what they call sans parents, and use that bit often, even though fewer people these days probably recognize it as such. Boss needs dictionary thesaurus. Not pretentious in my opinion. It's just French. It's literally just French with similar variations across the Romance languages. Pretentiousness is all in the tone and delivery. Comic Sans deemed too pretentious in year 2023 of the current era. My boss once told me not to use fancy words because I said I didn't want to placate a specific employee. It's like, buddy, it's just a regular word. Just because you haven't read a book since you graduated college 20 years ago. Don't get bent out of shape because you don't word good. Sans is a completely normal term to use. LMAO. This has happened to me multiple times over. With bosses while I waited tables. All the way on up the corporate ladder. Not only with sans, but a plethora of other words. Please continue to use your brain. It's not a word in common usage. I know it from Shakespeare. Sans teeth. Sans eyes. Sans taste. Sans everything, but you go for it. There is nothing wrong with having an extensive vocabulary. Having said which, it's wise to read the room and know when to call a thing a spade instead of an earth-inverting, manually operated horticultural or agricultural implement. From Canada. It seems like a normal thing everyone English-speaking I've encountered understands. Lol, my BF did make fun of me for calling Arc de Triomphe Triumpharc though. I used it today. I think it's perfectly fine. Maybe I'm pretentious, because I wince when people pronounce it sans. Why include the sans application part considering it would be implied? Adding it unnecessarily just to use it can come off as pretentious.